Hello everyone, so today I'm going to be talking about Aunt Hester, who is also known as Aunt Esther in Frederick Douglass's account. So, as we know, we have studied Aunt Hester's account in Narrative of the Life by Frederick Douglass, which was written in 1845, and then we were assigned to go back to his other two autobiographies. So his other one is My Bondage and My Freedom, which was 1855, and then Life and Times of Frederick Douglass, which was 1881. So in all three of these accounts, he recounts the traumatic experience that he had while witnessing Aunt Hester's beating. So the main and million-dollar question you may be asking yourself at this moment is, who is Aunt Hester? Well, oftentimes in his accounts, Frederick Douglass describes her as a beautiful, woman. And due to the fact of her beauty, we realize that she's penalized. She's penalized for wanting to love, for wanting to experience something out of the ordinary with Ned, to fall in love. And if you think about it, who wants to be penalized for loving? So I think it's important to go into these three accounts because while there might be minor changes in Frederick Douglass' language and the way that he expresses himself, his account is pretty much the same entirely in each one. It's just his usage of language shifts. He's very eloquent after 1845, he expands his vocabulary. He's a lot more descriptive, uses a lot more descriptive language to describe Hester. He does do a good job in 1845 of describing her and really recounting with rawness what happened. But we can tell that here his language just shifts and he uses a lot of more descriptive words to describe Ned and Aunt Hester's relationship, which in the first account left us with a lot of questions. As you can recall to class, we kind of just, kind of went back and forth and agreed to disagree on, what Aunt Hester's life was like. So to go more into depth on these accounts, stay tuned. 2 very boring minutes later. Right, so welcome back everyone to a new space. So here I will be going into depth of each account. So my main argument is that while his description stays relatively the same, it has the same ideas, the same themes, his language shifts, so it gives us a little bit more description of Ned and Aunt Hester / Aunt Esther's relationship, which we had a lot of questions about in the narrative in the life of Frederick Douglass. Just think back to the time, so I'll give you a second to think about when we talked about this and the questions you have. So think about those questions again. Okay, so after, kind of discussing that, we were left with a lot of questions which were answered. Maybe not answered, but they were more addressed so in these two. So here he talks about, the fact that they could have been married and we didn't really know, but we just knew that they had such a connection that obviously Aunt Hester / Esther was willing to get hit for it. And then here he kind of goes into depth again about their relationship, and he really describes her as beautiful here, which I think it is interesting to note that he calls her beautiful. And we think about how many times in history and even now women are punished for being beautiful. So I think that's something to really take into consideration and kind of compare it to gender roles today. So going into the biggest difference that I did see in the narrative of life is that in these two accounts, he talks about the fact that he is already sleeping and he's woken up by the shrieks of Aunt Esther and Aunt Hester, or Aunt Hester. And here it says that he goes and hides. So I think that's one of the things to really know is that, there was a little bit of a difference there. So I think the reason it's so important to just pay attention to this is because, as one keeps writing and growing, they obviously change their language and it becomes more descriptive. And here we can just see the evolution of Frederick Douglass through his writing. So you see how he starts off here kind of just using basic language to describe it. And here he uses more descriptive words, like bigger words, one would say. And the same goes for here. So I think it's really important to kind of see how Frederick Douglass evolved through his writings, and as well as the character of Aunt Hester and Esther. You know, her name goes from being an Hester to being an Esther. That leaves us with a lot of questions. Why may he have changed her name? Could it be that he finally, like, you know, got the spelling right? Or there's many questions, like, kind of left to the unknown. And I think that's really interesting to pay attention to this. So with this, I leave you with all of my thoughts, and I hope you have a great day.